Hi guys. So yesterday we talked about explicit information and what explicit information we can find in the text. And it's just stuff that's easy to find in the text. It's the easy part of the standard. The next part that we're going to talk about is the implicit information. That's what you really have to use your brain for. It's really like inferring, where you have to use what you know in your brain and what you read in the text to make a really good guess. So using your brain is what we want to focus on. So I know we looked over these pictures yesterday, but I want to do it again, and I have another picture to give you a good idea of what the difference between explicit and implicit are. So explicit, right there in front of your face. There's no need to look for it. There's no need to search for it because it's obvious. It's exactly where it needs to be. It's easy to find. So there are boys. There's boys in these pictures. There are four of them. Two things that are easy to find, and they are outside. That is all three things that are easy to find in this picture. Now, the implicit information, you have to use your brain a little bit more to find it. You have to infer. They're dancing. So you didn't just look at this picture. You had to look at their dance or their moves, the way their arms look, the way their legs look, the way they're standing. And that's how you were able to determine that they are dancing. And then you had to look even closer to how their arms are moving, how their legs look to guess that they're flossing. So you have to use your brain and dig a little bit deeper. You guys know what the floss dance looks like. That's what you already know, that's already in your brain. That's what helps you find implicit information. And then they are friends. You can't tell that obvious from this picture, but just using our brain, they're close to each other. They look like they're around the same age. Most kiddos that are around the same age can become friends. They're all boys. A lot of times boys are friends, girls are friends. So those are all things that you had to dig a little deeper when you're finding them. Let's use another one. So this is blueberries that you would eat. So explicit information is easy to find. They're blue, they're round, and they're small. Easy things to find out. Implicit information is just what you know. So you guys have probably eaten a blueberry or you've heard people talk about what they taste like. You also know they're a fruit, which probably means that they're good for your body. But those are all things that you've learned. Those are not things that you can just tell from looking at a blueberry. They're sweet, they're juicy when you bite into them, and they're healthy. But you cannot tell that stuff from this picture. You can tell they're small, round, and blue from this picture. That's easy to find. But you have to know something about blueberries. You have to use your brain to be able to tell me that they're sweet. For all I know, these things could be some kind of pepper and they could be spicy. But because I know what a blueberry tastes like, because my brain has that knowledge in there, my brain is smart. I know that they're sweet. I know that when I bite into them, they're juicy. They're really juicy on the inside. And I also know that they're healthy for me. So those are all things that your brain has to look for. And then yesterday we talked about how we would read the word explicit and how X, the beginning, kind of is like the word exit, like an exit sign. Pl has the same sound, and that's going to be in the word implicit today. And then sit is kind of like the word city, the beginning sound of it. And when you put them all together, you get the word explicit. Same thing with the implicit. And then explicit, we drew a picture. Miss Acton did this one just a few seconds ago. That's easy to find. And I thought about milk. You can't put milk anywhere else in your house. You can't sit it on your dresser. You can't tuck it into bed at night with you. You can't put it in the dishwasher. You can't leave it outside on, well, I guess if it was cold, you could leave it outside on the porch. But for the most part, it's easy to find because you know what's in your fridge. Because if it's not in your fridge, it's probably going to go bad. So explicit, a good picture for that is milk because it's easy to find information. Now, implicit, oh, this is supposed to be behind. Let me hide that. So, implicit is the same thing as explicit, except it's got the M part. And the one word that I could think of that may help you is images. How you do the image search whenever you Google something. I'll bring it to the front now. How you do the image search and it turns it from looking for websites to looking for images. So I typed in dog, and when I clicked the image search, it gave me just pictures of dogs. So images, implicit, has that beginning sound in it. And then you guys know the pl part and the sit part is like the word city, the beginning sound. So when you run into that word, you should be able to read it if you break it into those three parts. Now, let's draw a picture to resemble implicit. Now, I already did this, so don't be mad at me. Let's see if it goes back to it. There we go. So implicit means, oh, of course I gotta reload. It's always something going on. So in this picture, I think it's a great example of what implicit means in a drawing. So when you're thinking about something that's implicit, it is really not easy to find. You have to use your brain to find it. So you have to infer. You have to use what's in your brain and what you read from a text, which is what inferring is. You have to use your brain to find it. It's not obvious like some of the words that we saw in the tarantula text yesterday. So when I say infer or use your brain to find it, you got to really search for it. So in this picture, there's something that's not like everything else. Most of these are ovals and circles, things that are round, but there is a square, rectangle, something with corners that's in here. If you use your brain, you'll find it. If you infer, you think, okay, I'm inferring that I need to find things that have corners. Anything that's round all the way around it is not what I'm going to pick. And if you do that for just a few seconds, you'll be able to find the implicit thing in this picture, the square. So you used your brain to find it. So it's a little bit harder to find, but it's still there. That's what implicit information is. So I have a passage that we read yesterday, and you're going to also do in your classwork today, and I underlined a sentence in it. And then I'm going to show you ways that you can tell me more information about it because you're smart and you're going to use that brain to find implicit information. So the sentence that they underlined, it says, one reason is they do not need a lot of space. So that's a reason, a perfect reason that supports our central idea that tarantulas can be very good pets. If you live in an apartment or maybe mom and dad don't want you to have a dog because it needs a dog bed and a dog bowl and a backyard, a tarantula only takes up a teeny tiny bit of space. But it only says that it doesn't need a lot of space, but not a lot of space could mean Miss Acton's cup she's drinking out of. But I wouldn't put a tarantula in there. It could also mean some of these other images that I'm about to show you. So obviously this picture right here would not work because that is a lot of space. If you own a tarantula, you do not need this big a space. You know that this means it's not a lot of space. You know this is a big space because your brain is telling you that. You know that if these little people are walking around this entire huge place that has all these cool plants, you know that that's a large space. And you know that a tarantula doesn't need all that space, especially when you're going to use it as a pet. So you know that that is definitely not it because you know your brain had to find that information. Then we have this one. So not too big, pretty small. And you can see the tarantulas right there. Pretty small space. I see a lid up at the top. I see it has trees. It's got a little dish that probably keeps the water in. It's got a little rock that it can hide underneath of. So that one, I'm going to keep that one on there because that looks pretty good. And then this one, so it says they don't need a lot of space, which means they need a tiny space. So this is a pretty small space, if I do say so myself. But how do we know that that is not a good space for a tarantula? There's a huge opening in the front. That thing could just walk right out and go cruising around the house. The next thing you know, you step on it, it gets scared and it bites you. And that's what we don't want with our pet tarantulas. We want to make sure we keep them in their place. So even though this is a tiny space and it has everything that a tarantula could probably need, it's got soil to dig in, it's got plants it can hang out in, we know that this is not a space that they're talking about from this. Now, in this passage, did it say that the space that they need needs a lid? No, we just know that because that's information our brain knows. We had to find that information in our brain. It's not in this passage. It's nowhere in here. Do we know that it needs to have maybe a water bowl or someplace for the tarantula to hide? Yes. Did it say that in this text? No. You had to find that information. That's implicit information. Basically, implicit information shows how smart you are. All right, let's go to the next one. Eat about once a week. So think about how many times that you eat. 3 times a day. These things only have to eat once a week. That's craziness. So think about all the times that you have to eat a day. 3 times, and sometimes we eat snacks, sometimes we have dessert, sometimes we skip meals, but then we eat a big meal at the end of the day. You know how it goes. But 3 meals a day, I mean, that's huge. So we know that that's a big difference And the reason why we know that's a big difference is because we know how many meals that we eat. Now let's look at some of these pictures and decide what makes sense for what these tarantulas eat, because it says they only eat once a week, but then it says nothing about what they eat. So in your brain, you're picturing what a tarantula is eating every time you have to feed it that one time a week. So are you picturing Takis, moths, crickets, ice cream, cockroaches? What types of things are you picturing? Implicit information in your brain, you're using what you already know, and you know this, that these tarantulas do not eat Takis. You know they don't eat Takis. That makes no sense. It's unhealthy for them. You also know this, that tarantulas want nothing to do with ice cream. And you know that tarantulas are probably going to eat insects, and that's probably you would feed it once a week if you had a pet tarantula. That's because it's information that is in your brain. You had to dig for it, you had to infer to come up with it, but you already know it. So remember, implicit information really shows you how smart you are. Good job, guys. All right, last one. Pet tarantulas can hurt you if they are scared. It doesn't say any more information on how it could hurt you. Could they trip you, push you down the stairs, talk about your mama? How are they hurting you? Are they hurting your heart? Are they breaking it? Are they hurting your feelings? Are they throwing things at you? How are they hurting you? We know because we have background knowledge, our brains are smart. So we know that when it says that, that really it's not talking about that they're bullying you and hurting your feelings and making you cry. That's not how a tarantula is going to hurt you. We know that it's not going to make you cry by pushing you down to the ground. That's not how a tarantula hurts you. We know that that tarantula has fangs that are sharp and there's venom that come out of it. And we know that if you scare them and they want to hurt you, they're going to use those fangs that they have in the front. We know this because we know stuff about tarantula. That's information you have to really dig for. This text right here is not going to tell you about that stuff. You have to dig for it, but you already know the answers because it's in your brain. So that's what implicit information is. So on your classwork today, you guys are going to be answering some questions about what does implicit information mean. You're going to look at this text again. It's going to ask you some questions about the implicit details in there. So remember, it's not going to be something that you read in this text. It's going to be something that you had to think about that was mentioned in the text. It's not going to be easy to find. You have to use your brain and infer to find it. So really think about that as you're answering these questions. What do I need to find by using my brain? Those are the answers that you're looking for. All right, guys. I had fun teaching you guys this stuff. I hope the tarantula stuff is interesting and not too scary for you. If you have any questions or need any help, please contact your teachers. They would be more than happy to help you. Bye, guys.